On this episode of the Ask Donaldson Show, we talk about fair housing advertising, misleading advertising, and a real estate agent and their cell phone. Hi there, my name is Chris Donaldson, and welcome to the Ask Donaldson Show. This show has one mission, and it's to make sure that you only have to take the test one time. My entire mission in putting this show out there to you is so that when you take the real estate exam, you pass it the first time. So this show is entirely driven by your questions. So if you've never been a part of the show, or this is your first time watching, where have you been? And then what I mostly want to make sure is that you know how to ask a question and to take part in the show. So we'll make sure to tell you that at the end, and also below in the information, we will have how you can ask a question. So all of the questions here are driven by you guys, the folks that are getting ready to take the test, and then I'm going to answer them sort of right off the top of my head, and mainly because I want a natural teacher's answer. I don't want it to seem canned or that I'm reading some sort of a script from a textbook. So I'm feeling good. I think we might get an extra question or two in there today. I'm not exactly sure. I've got my fantasy football draft tonight, and I've done exactly zero preparation. So I'm not exactly excited about my team's prospects. So sorry, future team that I'm about to draft. I'm not sure if it's going to be a good year or not. And you know what? My competitive spirit has been slightly dinged, but not completely damaged. We've had this league since I was in college, and everybody has had their turn where they've run the league. I have never won the league. So send me your well wishes. Hopefully this is my year. But what I do know is this is your time to pass the exam the first time, and I'm going to do everything I can through this show to help you understand what you need to pass a test. So, Ryan, how you doing? You feeling good?
It's great. It's another good day.
It is a good day. It's a good day. We've got some good questions, I'm sure. Ryan likes to select from the pool and always bring it. So, without further ado, let's get to the questions. What's the first one?
Right. First question, Keith asks, I have a question about the Fair Housing Act. Do the exemptions apply only to senior citizens or familiar status and gender also? Also, when it says it's discriminatory advertising, does that mean you can advertise on Craigslist that you're looking to rent for someone with no kids?
All right. So you brought a tough one, because I can tell by the question that Keith is a little bit confused about the fair housing laws and how it all fits together. And guys, I want to make sure that you understand that's normal, because the fair housing laws and how to apply them, to comply with them, it's going to be a big part of your test, but it's also important that you understand. So first of all, let's remind ourselves who the protected classes are, because the Fair Housing Act is all about making sure that we do not discriminate in housing based on protected class status. It all started with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, where racial discrimination was illegal. Well, fast forward to 1968, the current law, Fair Housing Act, and there's an easy way to remember it. I'm going straight teacher mode on you to help you remember. And this is an acronym that I love to teach in class because it helps me remember the protected classes. And if you can see this, it says fresh corn. And the reason is because your protected classes are familial status, race, sex, handicap, color, religion, and national origin. And the E and the O, equal opportunity, just to help fill out the acronym. So first of all, to understand fair housing, you have to know who is protected. And it's these protected classes, which means in housing, you cannot discriminate based on somebody's familial status, or based on their religion, or based on their race. And so, for instance, in property management, if I am procuring for tenants, an obvious example would be I cannot allow one party because they're of one religion, as an example, and deny another party purely because they are of a particular religion. So a fair housing violation would be denying someone that lease because of their religion or their race or their gender, as an example. But Keith's question asks about first the exemptions. One of the beauties of the Fair Housing Act is that it understands that we do have some exempt parties or situations that might not perfectly fit into the fair housing law. As an example, religious organizations, since I just used that example, they are exempt from the dwelling requirements because, for instance, if I'm running a convent for Catholic nuns, it is legal under fair housing to only allow Catholic nuns to live in the convent because it's an exempt category. So when Keith asked, I believe, about whether senior citizens were the only exemption, no, there are several exemptions within the fair housing law that you want to know for the test. Another big one is what's commonly referred to as the Mrs. Murphy's exemption, which is the idea of if you live somewhere where you have 4 units or less and you are one of the tenants, then you're allowed to be more selective when selecting tenants than someone that does not fit that category. So let's think of a 4-plex. And me, Chris, I'm a resident. I own it, I live in 1 unit, and I rent out the other 3. What this means is another exempt category, is that I can be more selective with the people that I rent the fellow units because I actually live there. So what that means is, as an example, if I didn't want screaming loud children living next door because it would disturb my way of life, okay? If I'm exempt, that means I could choose not to rent to someone with screaming loud small children because I fit into that exempt category. That's number 1. So when you're studying for the test, know the specific exempt categories. Things like religious organizations, housing for senior citizens, what I call the Mrs. Murphy's exemption, which is the when you are a resident and so forth. But there's a second piece that he asked about, and if you're studying for the test, you want to make sure you keep them separate, which is advertising. Advertising is a totally separate issue from actually discriminating in housing. So even if I knew I did not want screaming, yelling children living next door to me because I'm in the exempt category, I cannot advertise in a way that discriminates. So he uses the example Craigslist. Is that right, Ryan? He asked about Craigslist ad, which is a common social media place for people to procure for tenants. I could not put in my ad, rental available, all people welcome, except for screaming children. That would violate fair housing because you cannot advertise in a way that discriminates. So, first off, remember who your protected classes are. Okay? Second off, understand there are certain exemptions written into the law that you want to study. And then third of all, understand that advertising is a totally different category. And even if you fit within an exempt category, you can never discriminate when you advertise. And I think if you keep those 3 things separate, who are the protected classes, what are the exemptions, and then understand advertising is a different set of laws altogether, hopefully that'll help you. Keith, I hope that helps you, and make sure you let me know when you pass this test the first time. All right, I think that was good. That's a tough topic. I could go on that one for a while because it is complicated, but let's move on to the second one.
Okay, we're going to stick with some advertising, and Mary asks, she's a little confused about the misleading advertisement. For instance, if she sees that someone has really good pictures of a property, and then when she shows up for the appointment, the property doesn't look as good as the pictures. Is that misleading?
Is that Mary?
That is
and she's
Mary.
asking if the pictures are so good and then the property is terrible. Is that a misleading advertisement? Well, let's start with the basics. What is a misleading advertisement? It means that you intentionally are misleading the public to basically defraud them or to show them that information is true that isn't. So let's take the term misleading out of real estate for a second to help clear it up. If taking a picture that was better than how you actually looked was illegal or misleading, every dating site in the United States of America would be taken down. Every single one of them. Because we all know that when you're looking at online dating, everybody takes the best picture they've ever taken of themselves, and that's the picture they choose. Or social media. Look at people's Facebook profile. You ever met somebody that you've been friends with on Facebook? You meet them in person, you're like, you look nothing like your profile picture. So having a really good picture is not misleading. So in real estate, we actually advocate. I'm a strong advocate for professional photography, making sure that your pictures are very good and that you are presenting the house in the best possible light. It's not misleading to take a great picture. It would be misleading to take a great picture and Photoshop undesirable elements out of the home to where it was misleading on purpose. As an example, I know of a true case where there was an unsightly electrical pole that was sitting in front of a house. And so to get the best possible picture, they simply photoshopped the electrical pole right out of the yard, right out of the picture. That's misleading because I'm presenting a product that doesn't actually exist, because when you show up to the house, there's that big ugly electrical pole. So you see, the difference is you can maximize the way a house looks by taking great professional photographs, but if you mislead the public by changing it, for instance, changing the paint color on the front, greening the yard to a point where it went from dirt to having a full lawn, that would be misleading. But simply having a really good picture, and when somebody shows up, their opinion is that this doesn't look as good as the pictures, is not the same thing as photoshopping things out like a light pole, which would be intentionally misleading. Okay? So intent is a big part of that. Doing it on purpose where you're trying to mess with the public, that's where really you can draw the line. All right. So that's good. I mean, those are two kind of long-winded questions. I know that they're tough issues. So, of course, we always want to bring one and the last question, which is something that is outside of the exam into the real estate world, where we can talk a little bit about your life as a real estate agent. I never know which direction Ryan is going to bring us when he brings this question. So, Ryan, what's the third and bonus question?
All right, we got a great one. It's from Frustrated Joe. He asks, as a real estate agent, it sort of goes with the territory to be available 24/7 to your clients. And it's driving me nuts. My clients text me at like 3 in the morning. I've even lost a client for not responding to them in the middle of the night. Is this just not for Joe, or is there a better way?
Oh, man. Joe, I feel your pain, and you've touched on one of my favorite subjects, which is the idea of being available 24/7 in today's society. I just picked up my cell phone. It was sitting behind me on the charger, because I want to point out, while I've been filming this show, my phone has been ringing, texting, emailing, everything off the hook, and will continue to do so, and will continue to do so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think that when it comes to real estate, it's a really tough business, because people are looking at houses and inquiring about houses on their time. So for instance, you want to set up a real estate business and you want to work 9 to 5, it's not going to work. Because when are people looking for houses? When they're off of work. So by the nature of the business alone, you're going to be working when other people are off, right? It's kind of like somebody that, I don't know, works for a professional football team like the Saints. You work on Sundays. So somebody that says, I never work on Sundays, well, you're always going to be working on Sundays when everybody else is off and enjoying the game or whatever. When it comes to your phone, here's my theory and my advice. And that is, everybody's human, and everybody has to sleep, and everybody needs time away where they're unavailable. And so what I'd like to describe is for you to understand that this device, your cell phone, works for you, not the other way around. It makes everybody more accessible to you, but it does not increase your problems. What you need to do is really twofold. Number one, understand that if somebody's emailing, calling, or texting you at 3 o'clock in the morning, everybody on earth is sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning. So if you don't respond immediately, and therefore that client fires you, my answer to that is good. Because that client's going to be more trouble than they're worth. But the second piece I'd like to point out is it's all about setting expectations. So as a real estate agent, if I'm listing properties, when I sit down with my seller, we will establish both how do you want me to communicate with you, and then what hours are most convenient for you, and then I will let them know up front what hours I'm unavailable, when I'm closed. As an example, if I'm closed from 10 p.m. till 6 in the morning, guys, if you think you're going to be losing business because you're not answering the phone or responding to texts through the middle of the night when normal humans are sleeping, I think you're wrong. I think most people are reasonable, and it starts with setting expectations with your client and letting them know, hey, Mr. Seller, these are my hours, but from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., you text, you call, I'm available immediately. But after that, it's family time, or it's when I need to sleep, or I may not be immediately available. So I think it's twofold. I think it's one, it's setting boundaries with your clients in your business and making sure that you understand it is okay to be away from this thing for a few hours a day. And the second is setting expectations with your clients, letting them know, these are my hours of business. This is when I'm immediately available. And if you let your clients know up front, generally they're more understanding on the back end. If they know I'm not available at 3 in the morning, they won't expect to get me at 3 o'clock in the morning. But really, this is a personal decision. But I can tell you, I've heard real estate agents, business people worldwide that are stressing out, losing sleep. They're not happy because they never feel like they can get away from work. I just did. Because I'm focused on you. And whatever it is in there, it's not an emergency. If it was an emergency, somebody would be running in here, ripping that camera over, and letting me know what's wrong. So my advice to you is set expectations with your clients and set aside time every day where you're away from that device to where you can focus on family, focus on friends, focus on yourself, and I think you'll feel a lot better there, Frustrated Joe. So that's the way I feel about it. And so that was good. I mean, a little fair housing advertising, a little misleading advertising, a little bit about cell phones. I could talk about that all day because, I'm big on that. Ryan, what you think? You think we brought it today? You think we got some value for the audience?
Another solid episode, adding value.
Love it. It's all about you guys. So if you want to ask a question and have a chance for us to answer it right here on the show, there's two main ways you can do it. Our favorite way is for you to ask your question on Twitter. So the Donaldson Twitter is at Donaldson School, and all you need to do is use the hashtag AskDonaldson. Bring your exam question, and hopefully we will find it and answer it right here on the show. The second way is you can email us, and it's ask@donaldsoneducation.com. So this is the Ask Donaldson Show. Cannot wait to see you guys next time. If you're about to go take your test, good luck, and email me. I want to hear from you when you pass.